don't want to talk too loud because everything feels a little bit tender and I'm afraid of tipping over into complete chaos. That's this full moon. Hello, I'm your host, Anne Headley, and this is my podcast, What is Going On Anyway, where I contemplate the current moon and what that means for me as a pathway through daily life. I wonder how universal themes show up for us through different moon cycles. And as I reach for meaning, using my intuition and imagination to share with you, dear listener, I find I'm discovering a richness in the utter simplicity of paying attention to life exactly as it is. So let's dive in. You know why I'm here. It's because there's a full moon. And right now, it's about to be. The full moon is tomorrow. Today is solstice. And so you may be listening to this and the full moon is past, but all of this still applies. As I'm trying to make sense of it, sometimes I can feel that there's just enough time in these 2-week cycles that I forget about them just a little bit. I forget what's coming next. So as we were approaching this week, this happens to me a lot. It's very much like when I had regular periods, I would forget oh, that's why I feel this way. So with this full moon, there was this, wow, I'm full and there's still more that needs to be put into this cup. So this kind of spilling over. Right now in Maine, we're having a heat wave. So we're over hot. It's like this, what is too much? What do you do when everything is too much? It's the same feeling of I can't quite get my hands around this thing. But this time, instead of just I just can't hold it all, there's an extra special little taste of anxiety and incompetence. That's like a sludge at the bottom of the glass that we're looking at. And I'm not exactly sure why I'm using the glass analogy, but I need you to see what I'm seeing. So I'm going to describe it to you. The way I see it is that we have a glass that is us. We are the glass, not just our body, but our whole body, mind, spirit connection is a glass. And we've been able to refill and I don't know, are we drinking from it? It doesn't really matter what we're doing with the water in this analogy. There's just, we are a glass and we've refilled and the water was really murky and now the water is really clear. But we have this sludgy stuff at the bottom. And so right now that sludge, just of course, you would eventually get to the point where you could clean the sludge out of the cracks at the bottom of the glass. And all of that's being stirred up right now. And we're like, wait a second, I had clear water. What is going on? I thought this stuff was gone. And it was because our water really was clear. But there's these little bits still stuck in the cracks and they're coming out. That's that's the way I'm seeing it, all right? And it is very hopeful because it means that if we can get that stuff out of the cracks, then that's a really clean glass. I mean, we don't even know what we could do with a clear vessel. And if you think about that, even if you just think about that Ayurvedically, we come in with a certain constitution and then life gives us something that we have to work with and we have to deal on top of our regular constitution. We have to deal with what life gave to us before we can even get back around to addressing ourselves as who we really are or who we really came in here not to be, but as who we came as. Is that very complicated? Anyway, let's just go back to the glass for a second because it just feels like shit to be all stirred up. And it's all this time and I've done nothing but land back where I started. And I know for me, that's what it feels like, and that's not what's happening. Now is actually the moment to feel that sludgy, murky terribleness. And you don't have to do anything about it. I'm saying this for me, like this is me talking to me. I listen to these again sometimes while I'm driving just to get like, hey, what was that again? This is not about the sludge. This is about the fact that you've attained the process of clearing out. So if you could see what's happening rather than become attached to the sludginess that's coming up, maybe that's a pathway through. So right now I'm feeling so much anxiety and it doesn't necessarily make sense. And so I'm wondering, like, what if I don't attach to the stories around the anxiety, but just notice how my body is able to contain and process, and what are the things that I do to ground myself, and let the anxiety be the sludgy water passing through, and that I'm grounding myself into the process of the movement and the flow that's happening, that allows me sometimes to pick up and process old stuff that I wasn't able to process before. Yeah, that's it, right? You get that? So we've got a lot of gunk moving through right now, and we're not starting over from the beginning. And it's like we always wanted to have this sort of clarity, this sort of power to focus and deal with these things that have been so hard to process, that have happened to us at times when we didn't have the capacity to process them. Yeah? I mean, I know that this podcast, my focus audience is like people like me. So we've been around a lot. So if you're younger and listening to this, it still applies. There's always a past, and there's always a future, and there's always this now. And this now, we always have the capacity to feel it really, 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 be here in this moment, and let that quality of being be the thing that is flushing through old stuff. I mean, it's digestive, right? We don't have to think really hard to digest. We have to give ourselves the right environment and let that process happen. So a lot of the stuff that came up for me, oh, wait. I want to just talk about this for a second, because solstice, right? So this is solstice. We're right in the middle. And last year when I got to solstice, I was like, oh my goodness. I did a whole half a year. I was so proud of myself. This year, this just feels like, okay, we're halfway. And I've done half a year of podcasts, and I have a half a year more. And I'm actually like a little bit excited. Like, where is this going anyway? So remember at New Year's, and there was this feeling, I had this feeling that 2024 was going to be so good, and life was going to open up for me. And right, maybe, yes, it has in so many ways. But New Year's are like babies. And this newborn baby comes in, right? And we're all so excited for this newborn baby, and we're just getting to know it. And we've got lots of like hopes and expectations based on, frankly, sometimes it's based on gender and based on family stories. Like, who's this baby going to be for this family? And we don't know the baby. And eventually, after 6 months, you start to know if they're like fussy eaters or terrible sleepers, or if they're like, you put them down and they're going to like climb up the stairs or the shelves around you, or some babies you just put down and they're just kind of happy to stay where they are. But by 6 months, you know that. So let's think about this year for a second and what's happened so far for you and me. And we've got a flavor of what this year is like, right? So for me, this year is like lots of ideas, a little bit of action. lots of hopes and dreams, and a little bit happens. But the thing about this year is that the things that do happen have been consistently magical and wonderful and like what my dreams are made of. I hope that's the same thing for you. Like the little things that happen, maybe it's my level of appreciation. Maybe everything's always been magical, and only now I have the ability to appreciate these things in a fuller capacity so they feel more magical. But, saying yes to things that I like doing has made a big difference in my life. It seems like such a silly, simple idea, but saying yes when I feel the yes has made all the difference. And saying no when I feel the not sure or maybe, it's been a huge relief to me. Really, really hard to practice, but it's been a huge relief to me. So this is good, right? Okay, now I'm going to go back to my story. And I want to tell you all of it. And also, I still I feel the anxiety around it. But let me see what I can do. So I said yes to this modeling gig for Maine Media Workshops. And I had done one before, and it was nothing but a positive, wonderful experience. And the picture that you see as the podcast comes up is one of the pictures that came out of that modeling job that I did last year. So I was pretty excited and looking forward to the artistry of photographers, the quality of seeing things differently. And this modeling gig is with nudity, which I've done before and I'm somewhat comfortable with. And so this time I was like, I wasn't feeling completely comfortable, and I said, I'll do partial nudity, so like topless nudity, because I knew that was like comfortable for me in most situations. And I got to the gig, and there's 8 students, and 7 of the students are white men over the age of 65. And I got this flood of creepy. And I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? And I went immediately back to my teenage self that seemed like she was involved with creepy older white men over and over and over again. Right? But I'm not 19. I'm the oldest model. I'm the most menopausally robust. Is that the right way to say it? Model. And I had so many questions of like, why did I do this? I don't need to do this. And I just dove into it. And I have to say, I have learned so much about myself. And also, I've really been able to look at how I have done things because I was afraid to say no to, not any individual man exactly, but it's like I was afraid to say no to the whole system of patriarchy where there is someone naturally in this system has power. I wouldn't say naturally, but, that hierarchical system that it's in us. It seems natural. It's not natural, but it seems natural that I would defer my will to someone higher in that hierarchical system. So the white men, obviously, higher than me. So here I am in this situation, and being given the opportunity is the nicest way to say it. Being given the opportunity to work with ideas around consent. How comfortable am I saying no? And wow. I mean, some of these men, let's see, I don't want to, whatever. One of these men is 80 years old, and he cannot seem to change his mind. I mean, like, this is my problem, is I think I'm going to go in and be like, well, times have changed and la, la, la. And like, I want to teach him about my idea of feminism. And he has no interest in that. Women are beautiful when they are young and fully haired. And I am surprising the shit out of him because he is compelled. I'm going to say compelled by my beauty. It's not exactly true, but I think he was surprised by thinking differently about a woman. And, fuck him too. He's super immature, and one of the first scenarios was to be photographed by two photographers, and they're taking turns and they're creating scenes and directing the model. And part of this is because these photographers are novices in working with models. So part of this whole workshop is learning how to speak with and to a model. These are not like seasoned photographers that work with models all the time, right? So I can give him that he's just learning. But one photographer was like, look, I just want you to talk to this other photographer. This is the 80-year-old. And I want to take pictures of you talking because you make interesting gestures when you talk. And, to me, that's like an artistic puzzle that's very interesting to me. And I said, okay, let's have a conversation. Ask me a question. And he said, what did you like to do in high school? And I was so bored by that question. I think I might have said, that's a stupid question. I think I said, ask me a better question than that. And so the next question he asked me was, what's your favorite sexual position? And the other photographer was like, oh, don't say that. And I had this reaction from just years and years and years of men going at relationship from that angle. I don't know exactly how I answered it. Like, what I would want to answer is, I guess that's not something you'll ever know, or I'm sure you would want to know that, or like, I don't know. But do you know what I'm talking about? This kind of like, it's the kind of question that men in my life have felt like they could, not all men, right? I'm thinking of some very sweet men that would never, ever start a conversation like that. But it's the men who are like testing their power, or what is it? Do you have answers to that? It's so icky, 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 icky. And I just think about men in my life, my grandfather, my father, my uncle, and not all of them in the same family. It's not just like family ickiness, which also there is, but like uncles that are married to family members, just like being leery and creepy and inappropriately sexual. And it's like, ugh. So I've been thinking about that all week. Like, why would I say yes to working with a photographer with that kind of energy? And as the week has progressed, it's been interesting because I've had more sense of self-empowerment around all of it, like saying yes, no, and realizing that anybody can say anything to me, appropriate or not appropriate, and I get to respond to it however I want. Like, I've had many opportunities through this week to be like, well, you're working on your maturity, aren't you? And, like stuff that he's really very much like a little child. And it got me thinking about many, 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 many white men haven't been allowed to love what they love. They haven't been allowed to learn about their desire and passion outside of the only one thing that they were allowed to love. And I don't mean love, but to have some sense of passion or desire around are women, and not just any women. They were only allowed to love women in a very narrow range of acceptability. Right? Think about that. I heard two of the photographers talking to each other, and we were out in a field, and they were like, "Oh, I remember my mama said, go grab a switch, or you better go get a switch." So both of them were beaten by their parents with switches, which I know was common. And I just thought about these old white men coming to this photography workshop, photographing the female form in the landscape, and realizing that their whole life long, this was the only thing they were allowed to openly have desire around. And their desire, like anybody else, has got to be hugely wide-ranging. So it just got me thinking all the way around the story of this for me, that I have been victimized by the white male gaze my entire life, so much that I feel it inside myself. I realize when I go there, like, oh, I'm not what they're looking for. And then at the same time, I see it as this beautiful, incredible opening opportunity. How wonderful. I'm not what they're looking for. And they still have to find a way to make a piece of art around that. And also, they're so damaged. Like another thing that somebody said, and he was joking, silence is consent, right? Ugh. And I just raised both hands, I think, up into the air, and I said, absolutely not. I don't. And then somebody else was talking to another younger model and said, I want to take a sexy picture. And I was like, why? Even if you want to take a sexy picture, why do you have to say it to her? I was just like, ugh, gag me. And then this other one, and this was even a different guy. He said, well, girls didn't wear swimsuits like that when I was younger. I don't know what he's talking about, like maybe bikinis. We were at a remote location that there were a lot of other people swimming. And I said to him, you couldn't have handled it. At any rate, I'm starting to enjoy these old farts, and they are taking magnificent photos. So I don't know, what am I learning? I've got all this body shame, right? And I want to blame them for my internalized misogyny, really. Why in the world would I be ashamed of this body that carries my soul? It kind of makes me sad how often, how repeatedly I am unkind in my thoughts to my own body. And I'm wondering if this sort of like body shame, anxiety, worry, misogyny is all coming out of the cracks for me. And how can I sort of flush and integrate that? Because I cannot have a truly, fully happy life and have this subtle story going on in the background that I'm not good enough or pretty enough or skinny enough to enjoy life on my own terms. It's sort of like the end of the line there for me. And I can say that, and that's like a mental activity, but there's stuff in my body, there's stuff in my gestures, in the way I move, that's the stuff that's coming out. And so the only thing I know to do is just be gentle and soft and kind with myself. For the first 2 days after this modeling, and today is my last day, so it's interesting I'm talking to you now before I go into the last one and talking all about this. But the first 2 days I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. I shouldn't have to do this. And I said, nobody made me in the first place. But it's been really hard to confront some of these old stories inside of myself. But I cannot think of a better moment to work some of this stuff out. I mean, the opportunity to work with these old men and for me to behave, think, feel, and act differently is like gold. I mean, I really couldn't have asked for a better moment, but it's been hard. It's been hard because it's hard to think of myself as a younger person and not having all of this empowerment and what I went through and what I thought I had to tolerate. It's just sad. Yeah. So the other thing that's happening for me is that the younger models, I'm like, you don't have to do that. And I don't know, like standing up for them in a way that I didn't have people standing up for me when I was a younger model. I wasn't a model, guys. I wasn't. I just, did a couple of things. But enough that I know what, I know how it was for me when I was younger, and I know that it's different now. Okay, right? So this is the full moon, not the modeling story. I know you're probably not doing that, but this full moon is like, what is coming up for you that you thought wasn't an issue anymore? What's coming up for you that's making you feel some stuff that's like, really? That's really where I'm right back here? It's like, feels like you're back at day one. You're back at the starting point, but you're not really. It's just time to digest some of this stuff. Right? So we've got these 3 lambs and a mama, and they're ruminants. They eat and then they bring that cud back up and they chew it some more and then they digest again. So I think this is like second stomach digesting. I think that's what's happening now. Like some of the stuff is coming up, time to chew on it, maybe think about it, maybe live through it, maybe just ground your body in it and then let it digest. Time for that second digestion. That's what I hope for. That's what I wish. Let's see what the I Ching has to say. And we get 39, limping, or I always think of 39 as obstacle. The question to ask is, where can you find help? And this actually is huge for me because what I realized is when I was having a hard time Monday after the first photo shoot, I got in touch with my people. I was like, I'm not the only one that's been through stuff like this. And I talked to friends and Stephanie called and all of this support came in. It's like, where is your help? The new way of doing things is not to do things alone. Don't have hard times alone. Find someone, resource help. It doesn't have to be a friend. You can resource a professional. There's too much help available for you to do anything that's hard like this alone. Don't do it. You can't do it. The point is to reconnect and form and create community, not to individualize even further. You've individualized enough. Now it's time to seek help. Okay, the other question is, how could you see the obstacles differently? Well, I think I just did that, right? I'm trying to see around the situation and not just say, that guy is the bad guy and I'm the good girl. That's not it. That's not it. Really seeing all the way around. How did we get here? And how does it change? For me, the only way to change is for me to be in relationship with that one person and behave differently by resourcing the help and support that I need. So the question is, can you imagine going a different way? Can I imagine going a different way? Can I imagine being fully empowered and asking for my needs to be met, believing that that's possible? That's for me. That's the question for me. When life has become an uphill struggle, it's wise to fall back to the Southwest, just symbolic. The Southwest represents a realm of friendly allies, your friends, and sun-warmed fields, comfortable environments. The Northeast is dark and mountainous, the way of calling and adventure. So this is a time to take a step back from the struggle and connect with people more than with ideals. Even if the responsibility is yours alone, the work need not be. Really facing a problem means being prepared to tackle it in a different way, not just trudging doggedly onwards until the path peters out beneath your feet. We've gotten 39 recently. I'm not exactly sure when, and I don't feel like going back right now, but this is not the first time we've got this, right? We've got obstacles, and we've got to find new ways around them. Seeing great people helps you to keep traveling towards your long-term vision despite the obstacles and course corrections. You may literally find a great person with the experience and wisdom to reorient you. You may be guided by an inner vision of human potential. Okay. We have line 4. Going on, limping, coming back, connection. So that just asks us to come back. This situation exerts a powerful pull on you, maybe in a couple of directions at once. It's natural to focus in on deciding how you can handle it, but pause and reconsider. And not only your personal direction, role, and feelings. Maybe you, as one vulnerable individual, can't handle this. But in broadening your perspective, you rediscover how you are part of a larger whole. That might mean making an authentic, practical connection with a supportive group that's adequate to the task. So just reach your many, many tentacles out and find support and connection. That's the point of right now. It moves to hexagram 31, influence. What influence is active, and what does it draw you towards? What is its place in your life? And I would say influence is not exactly the word I would use. Like allurement. Isn't that a lovely word? Lori taught me allurement. That's just because I know you're listening, Lori. Allurement is here what we're talking about. Wooing. Influence is what moves people and how people are open and available to be moved. Right? Like not everything moves you. Not everything gives you that opening or that feeling of availability to want. So we can be moved by emotion or inspiration or physical responses or visiting spirits. All these things touch, stir, and attract us, drawing us into relationship. It is good to respond to the power of influence with constancy, steadying the motion it inspires, and creating a place in your life to contain it. Good fortune comes from this more feminine way of relating, being open and allowing space for new influences. Okay, babies, it's getting pretty hot in this little closet, this little podcast closet of mine. And that's enough. You got it, right? This full solstice, advice or homework or whatever you want, or just think about it for this 1 second while I'm talking. What has this year meant to you up to now? What has it actually shown itself to be? Maybe we thought this was going to be the year that we did great traveling, and turns out we just met new friends at home. What was this year for you so far? And how do we know the feeling of this year so that we can have the second half of the year, we can have a relationship with it? Just like that fussy baby, by the 6-month mark, you realize, this is the way they are. And so I change my schedule so that they go to bed early enough and they're fed before they're too hungry. And, we start to learn about this year. So what is it about this year that you know for sure? What's really worked for you? How can you keep doing that? And how can you make spaces for the quality of what you know to be enhanced? Like, I have this feeling that the second half of this year will be, I want to say easier. I don't really mean easier. It'll just be more synchronized. That's the best word I've got for it. Okay, that's all I've got. I hope you can stay cool. Enjoy this glorious full moon. Like, this magical thing's going to happen for us where the heat wave is going to break and the moon is going to rise. And so let it shine out. This reflective moon gives us the opportunity sometimes to see things that are usually in the dark, see things that we might not usually see. So if you want to, go out there and look. May you be well. May you know peace. May all beings everywhere, whether known to me or unknown, be well. May they know peace. Thank you for being here. You can always look me up on Instagram at Ann Headley or my website, www.annheadley.com. Until next time, bye for now.